Today marks 8 days since authorities began looking for Elijah Vue.
He was reported missing in Two Rivers over a week ago. An Amber Alert was issued later that day. Take a look at your screen now. He's about 3 feet tall, between 45 and 50 pounds, has brown hair and brown eyes. Elijah also has a birthmark on his left knee.
In a First Alert update, Brittany Schmidt is in Two Rivers learning more from authorities tonight. Brittany.
Cammy Bill, Two Rivers police say the new reward amount of up to $15,000 for any information that leads to Elijah is bringing in more leads. A retired FBI Special Agent David Fallon spent his entire career investigating crimes against children. He tells me an increased reward may lead to some false reports, but that is why they likely have an experienced investigator triaging those tips. Investigators are up against a moving clock, canvassing neighborhoods, searching waterways, and rechecking areas with canines. Time is a major factor here, now more than a week with no sign of Elijah. Fallon says he's been following the case, and from the outside looking in, he says these cases represent a particular challenge to law enforcement.
In my opinion, they're very challenging because of the nature of the report itself. You have a very young child who was reported missing. There are a definite lack of witnesses who have information about the case. So it represents a challenge to law enforcement to follow an investigative plan. Where do we search? Who do we canvass? Who do we talk to? What evidence should we be exploiting?
We checked in with Elijah's family today. They tell us their focus and might remain on their dire request and efforts to find Elijah. Reporting in Two Rivers, Brittany Schmidt, Action 2 News.
And here's the little boy's picture one more time. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $15,000 for information that could lead to the location of Elijah or the arrest of those involved in his disappearance. Call the phone number you see on your screen if you have any information, 844-267-6648.